Welcome back, Stalkers. Right before the game releases, I wanted to make a video explaining more about Stalker in general, what to expect from the sequel, and give you some basic information about the zone itself, its inhabitants, anomalies, artifacts, and much more. So let's begin. The zone, as you will hear it a lot, refers to the area of the exclusion zone in Chernobyl. It was used by Soviets to work on all sorts of experiments, including Noosphere, which is, by lore perspective, an invisible field surrounding Earth and is going to be very important for, Stalker in general. And many experiments were actually done when Soviet Union was around. Now, after the initial oopsie happened in the nuclear power plant when reactor 4 exploded and the fall of the Soviet Union happened, the zone became again grounds for experiments, but that secret didn't stay for long, as besides official expeditions, regular people started entering the zone to find the riches for themselves. Now, these people are called Stalkers. For me, the zone is the main character of this game, being that even though dangerous and deserted, for the most part, can still be beautiful to explore. Through the trilogy, map itself got expanded and new areas were included, where in Stalker 2, the map itself will include most of those areas we have seen before, like for example Cordon, Rostock, swamps and so on. So all of these locations, as you remember them from the original games, well, their layout should be, sort of similar. And you will be able to freely travel between them. Of course, traveling to higher tier zones will be difficult because, well, you're gonna be encountering higher level enemies in terms of their equipment, so you should be keeping, to the starting areas, especially at the beginning of the game. But of course, even for old areas that we do remember, some things have to be taken into account because this game is set after the trilogy, so some time has passed and we see that nature started reclaiming its old territories, so exploring it again in higher definition and graphical fidelity should expand even more on that atmosphere, which has always been the main thing for this game, but you will see more of that once you enter the zone. As I mentioned before, in the zone besides people and mutants you will come across anomalies and artifacts. Anomalies appeared after those explosions and emissions, and they come in various types, from push-pull anomalies to those who do toxic damage, fire damage, electrical damage, and so on. They will be all over the zone, on the road you walk, to anomalous areas that will also have artifacts in them. You will see those anomalies with audio and visual cues, so make sure to really pay attention where you walk, so that you don't accidentally stumble upon one, or especially when you fight you should pay attention to it because you might accidentally walk into one. In areas with more concentrated anomalies or, well, anomalous zones, as I mentioned before, you will find artifacts. Now, in the game you will have all sorts of detectors that will beep as you get closer to it, and, well, high quality detectors are going to even show you in which location you should be going, or at least which path you should take. And you're going to use bolts to throw it at an anomaly so you can see first, well, what it does, and second, if the path in front of you is clear, and the safest way to do it is, well, with a bolt. Artifacts are very useful to either equip them because, well, some of them give powers or, well, buffs for your character, like better defense against some things, to radiation protection sometimes, and various other bonuses for you to mix and match that, you should fit the best in your setup and your gear. They can also give out radiation, so make sure to watch out for that if you equip it, because if you don't have good radiation protection from your armor, over time it's going to, well, accumulate that radiation, well, it's game over, so some artifacts are better equipped later. You can also sell them for profit, which is ultimately why Stalkers come into the zone, besides Wish Granter, but that's the story for another video when I cover the story of the Stalker trilogy. Through the zone you will come across various mutated creatures and beasts that will attack you on sight. They range from early mutants like blind dogs, boars, flesh, cats, not friendly ones, but you also have stronger mutants or, well, mutants with more mechanics like pseudo-dog, which might send out illusions after you, so you have to figure out which one is real and which one is actually attacking you, or bloodsuckers, which can be incredibly difficult to fight as they are fast, have invisibility and deal huge damage. They are considered one of the most feared mutants in the zone. There will also be zombies, or well, zombified stalkers that are actually there because, well, too much radiation and psi exposure does that to you. Being that some of them turn while having weapons, you can expect them to shoot at you, or at least, of course, they will be slow and won't have any special tactics to take you out, but can still deal damage if you are hit. There are also mutants like Burer, Snork and Poltergeist that you won't see often, but once you do, it's going to be a fight, especially Snorks because they like to move in groups and are relatively fast. Stalker was always known for its alive system, meaning that animals and stalkers move around the zone, making it more alive and dynamic, and now in the sequel they are expanding it to include more events within the world that is caused by mutants moving around more, migrating to a different area, so that maybe area you visited before which was safe is not going to be safe anymore, so always pay attention even when you think you're going maybe into like a protected area, because now it might actually have people or mutants around it. Now of course we still don't have the list of all of Stalker 2 mutants and what's going to appear, but more on that is going to arrive once the game releases. Besides mutants, in the zone you will come across stalkers that can be in different factions. The first you will most probably meet are loners or free stalkers that are not affiliated with anyone and provide somewhat of neutrality towards most factions that are friendly to them or won't shoot them on sight, but you will still have enemies, especially bandits, at start. There are more organized factions like Duty, Freedom, Military, Monolith, somewhat, I don't know about that now though, and some new ones like Ward and Noon. All of these factions have their own interest in the zone and history behind them is incredibly deep. Best example would be Duty and Freedom that I mentioned. They are in the constant state of war, being that they have completely different view on the zone. Duty wants to control the zone and keep people from going deeper into it and generally just keep more people from getting into the zone. You can think of them as a very formidable paramilitary because they are organized exactly like the real military and have some of the best fighters out there with top-notch equipment. Duty cooperates with the government and gives all anomalies to ecologists or eggheads as people call them so they can research it. They don't want to exactly profit off of the zone. On the other hand, Freedom, as the name says, thinks that there shouldn't be a monopoly on the zone and that everyone should have access to it. To Duty members, they are known as hippie stoners and apparently do questionable things with bloodsuckers. Jokes aside, even though they are, well, a lot more relaxed than Duty, they still have a lot of members and are one of the most powerful in the zone. Besides that, you have factions like, for example, Monolith, whose strength and lore we shall see in the sequel, being that, well, after the events in previous games, we don't know what they are exactly doing right now and how strong they are. Monolith is a faction which was controlled by C Consciousness, which had a part in another oopsie where the zone became, well, what it is and why it's expanding so much. They even created something called Brain Scorcher that stopped people from entering closer to the, nuclear power plant. If you did, well, your brain got fried. Now in previous games, C Consciousness was stopped, but we shall see how will that influence the lore moving forward, including Monolith themselves. On top of that, you have Military, which doesn't have friends in the zone, and if you see them early game, don't engage as they are extremely well equipped. But the whole faction dynamic, well, we shall see more about it once the game is out, because some time has passed and many things have changed. Speaking of equipment, in Stalker 2, as in previous ones, you will have a selection of various weapons from pistols, assault rifles, snipers, even a Gauss rifle, which I'm sure will make a return in this game. Each weapon will have different stats in damage, penetration, rate of fire, range and accuracy. Because there is a weight system in the inventory, we can also see how much each weapon will weigh and its durability. As durability goes down, that will also mean your weapon is going to jam more often, which can be fatal in a fight, so always have your weapon in good condition. And each weapon will have its own caliber, meaning that, for example, all 939 ammo for S.Slavina, as we can see here, will group also all other weapons that use 939. So make sure to always have different weapons equipped with different caliber, because otherwise you will burn through ammo quite fast. There will also be different types of ammo, going from hollow point to armor piercing. My advice is to have both in case you need to switch against enemies with armor on them. In our inventory we see 2 weapon slots with 1 sidearm slot and 1 slot for equipment such as detectors, and up to 5 slots for artifacts. But of course lower quality armor means less slots. But upgrading some armor will get you those extra slots for artifacts you need. As before, we also have a helmet slot alongside quick access, which is going to be for consumables, either bandage, medkit, to various stims or even vodka for a quick sip when radiation goes up. They also shown that there will be many attachments for weapons like silencers, scopes and under barrel attachments like shotgun 1 for the sniper. Plus you can change those scopes on the fly so you can adapt to a situation a lot faster. Upgrading weapons will be necessary, and they pretty much do it like before. Here we see upgrades and modules you can get. I do wonder if you will need to bring crafting tools, to an actual fixer, because before you actually had to do it, especially in Call of Pripyat, where even if you wanted to upgrade, well, you had to find higher quality tools, which were usually in like mid-game to late-game areas, meaning that, well, don't expect to upgrade your gear to fully at the start of the game. But don't expect Anomaly Gamma weapon and armor maintenance where you have to find each part in separate tools. It won't be that deep, because that was modded experience, never a vanilla one. Armor will also range from lighter ones to exosuits, which are combat suits that will give you insane defense for everything, including radiation protection. So that's also something you have to think about. Do I take a heavier piece of armor, or do I go with medium one for mobility and better stamina? Well, that will be on you. Healing in STALKER can be done by using bandages and medkits depending on how hard you got hit. Medkits can range in quality from normal one to scientific medkit, which is a lot better, army medkit and so on. Besides that, you will have various stims at your disposal for better radiation protection, psi protection that can be very useful in more difficult fight and against, more and tougher mutants. And on top of that, you have anti-radiation drugs that will remove your radiation in case you get sick with it, because you have to pay attention to that in the zone. Some areas will be more irradiated and you should avoid those without proper gear. STALKER 2 will keep its hunger and thirst system from before, meaning that from time to time you will have to eat and drink, and also now we have some good animations that follow along with it. Now, one of the best or worst things depending on your position that you will experience will be an emission or blowout, which is a sudden and powerful release of excess noosphere energy, which means that everything caught outside in that storm will be gone. Once that happens, you have to seek shelter right away. That can be anything indoors with walls around you. You will have to wait some time until it passes, but of course once that starts you will have some time to get to a shelter, but don't take too long, as there is no way to survive it outside regardless of what gear you have. I honestly can't wait to experience this in Unreal Engine 5, as it can really give out some powerful effects, especially with the higher graphical fidelity we have today. Now for the end, my biggest advice to everyone, especially new players, is to take this game slow. Exploring and finding hidden stashes can be a lot of fun and very rewarding, so rushing through this game might hinder that experience for you. Work on your gear and weapons so that later on you won't be caught doing low damage against stronger opponents, especially ones in exosuits. And always make sure to keep enough ammo and meds on you, depending of course on the difficulty, and yes, you will be able to choose your difficulty when you start the game. And this is everything I have for you today. Tomorrow I have some Stalker 2 news for you, and that, well, on Wednesday we have Stalker 2 coming out, so expect a lot of videos from guides, gameplay, lore and a lot more. Make sure to subscribe if you enjoyed this video and want to stay updated to everything Stalker 2, and join our community on Twitter and Discord. Huge thanks to my current Patreon supporters. Now get out of here, Stalker.